Hey guys.
Hi guys.
Naise and Jingles, the Better Climber. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about shoes in general. We're not necessarily going to talk about a style of shoe, a brand of shoe, or whatever, even though I am going to talk crap about 510 since they got rid of my favorite shoe, the Anasazi. It's the best shoe in the entire world.
And I'm going to thank La Sportiva for not getting rid of my favorite shoe, the Katana.
Not yet, but they're going to, just to even it out.
Because they're good people.
Anyway, I'm also going to talk crap a little bit about people who size shoes a little bit. So let's start off with overall how a shoe should fit. And I think you and I may differ a little bit on terminology, but not necessarily on intent. So
correct.
I think that a shoe is going to fit different for a beginner climber, an intermediate to advanced climber, and youth. We're going to briefly touch on youth, and I think it's going to be more of an opinion-based thing than an actual fact. But okay, so one of the things that I argue, and I always start off with new climbers. When you're a new climber, you really want your shoe to fit comfortably. Now, what that means is kind of up to the new climber. Because almost every gym staff, when you go into a new gym and you're a new climber, for example, you go in there, they almost always say you want it to be tight, or it's going to be tight.
It's going to be a size shorter or smaller than your running shoe, something like that.
Yeah, but it always boils down to it's going to be tight. So people tend to think, oh, I need to get this thing as tight as possible, which later on in life, maybe that's what you want. That's kind of your comfort level. But early on, I would argue against it. I would argue you want something that's comfortable.
Comfort over functionality when you first start is probably ideal.
Yes.
I would definitely lean that way.
And the problems that is going to create is that the shoe is going to fit loose because your foot is not used to it. Think of it as Chinese foot torture when they try to make the feet as small as possible for the Chinese foot binding.
They bind them and all that good stuff.
That is basically what you're going to end up doing with your shoes. The longer you climb, you're going to want something that's a little bit tighter. But to start off with, you want something that just feels right. In a normal shoe, your foot sits flat. You can wiggle your toes around, and it may swim in the shoe just a little bit. So that's what feels normal to most beginner climbers. So when I say get something that's comfortable for you, they're going to gauge normal based off of how that normal shoe fits on them when they're walking around.
Yeah.
Now, as you pointed out, and I think before this, that is going to create some serious problems, especially long term. Because if your foot swims around in it,
it's going to slide through the shoe.
It's going to slide.
You're not going to have the purchase on the holds that you want. You're going to get blisters and weird calluses and all kinds of other stuff getting built up on your foot.
Yep. So that first initial bit of get something that's comfortable to start off with will last you about in a gym with no shoes that you're buying, you're just getting a gym shoe. That'll last you about 2 sessions before you're like, I really should probably find something that fits a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got 2 sessions worth of basically a gym shoe, which is, let's be honest, it's a crap shoe. That they don't spend a lot of money on those kinds of shoes, and you don't want to spend a lot of money as a gym.
No, because
you don't want to spend $200 on a pair of shoes that are going to get torn up when someone is just bull running the wall out of every time they grab a hold. So yeah, you want a cheaper shoe and you want something that's comfortable. So from a gym's perspective, it makes perfect sense. And I'm not talking smack about it, but you got to admit that it's a crappy shoe. So you start off with a crappy shoe to start off with. All right. After you go from that, you're going to get your first pair of shoes.
Yes.
What are some things that you think you should look for to start off with?
I've always told everybody, try on every shoe they have in the gym, every brand and every style. Because then you're going to get an idea for what you find comfortable. And I tell them to look for 3 things. You want to make sure that your foot is reaching the end of the toe box. Your foot is filling the width of the toe box.
Yep.
And your foot fills the heel cup. And you're not rubbing the bone on the side of your ankle with the side of the shoe.
So those are the 3 big things.
Yeah.
And I agree with you when you say you should be trying every single shoe you can get your hands on.
Because 510s, they just don't fit my foot right.
And they fit my foot great.
They're a good shoe.
Yeah.
Not for me.
So I think now is just a good point to mention that I'm not really going to talk about the brand specifically because Evolve has made shoes that have climbed the hardest routes in the world.
Oh, for sure.
La Sportiva has, 510 has. Unparalleled, I'm certain. I mean, there's tons of shoe brands out there and they've all climbed really, really well. So the style of rubber may make a difference, but really I think it depends on where you're climbing, the type of rock you're climbing, or if you're a gym climber only,
And
whatever it is, it makes where you are makes a big difference, as well as
how it
each
fits.
brand fits differently. I might get a size 42 in 5'10", but I'm not going to get a 42 in a La Sportiva. Maybe, because
Maybe.
I'm even within the same brand of 5'10", if I go to one shoe versus another, I might have a 42 versus a 41 and a half or a 41, just depending on what it is.
Well, and I've found that flat shoes, I get bigger sizes than I do the aggressive curved shoes. Because if it's curved, I have to downsize to make it comfortable and to make it feel like it's doing its job.
Okay, so to go back up a little bit. So for a beginner, let's call it beginner shoe or a new person shoe, you still want to aim for comfort, but you really should want to get something that's fitting more appropriately. You don't want that foot binding situation, but you do want your feet, your toes together to start off with. And maybe depending on your own personal comfort level, you're going to want your toes bent somewhere from almost flat to here.
Yeah, very mild curl.
The longer you climb, maybe you like this kind of a little bit better with your toes, but that is going to end up being a personal opinion on, or personal choice and preference on how tight you want your shoe to be.
Absolutely. I've always hated people that are just like, oh, this is what size your first shoe was. You need to go a size smaller on your second and a size smaller on your third, and then you have shoes that properly fit. That's not the case for everybody, and the way that their foot feels inside of a shoe.
Yeah, I mean, some people, as I have gotten older, I developed arthritis in my foot, and the tighter the shoe, the less comfortable I feel standing on something that's small, the less comfortable I feel standing on something that's pointy. So I like a more moderate shoe in general. What you choose is really going to be dependent on how your foot feels in the shoe.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if your foot likes an aggressive shoe, something that's really bent down, curved down, and arched really hard, then that's what your foot likes. If it likes, like mine is like some more moderate shoe, a more flat foot and toe box in general, then go with that. Aim for something that's comfortable. You can get different shoes that are specializing in overhang versus, different terrain or whatever. You can do that if you want. I personally have found that most shoes work really well if they fit your foot.
And if you know how to use your feet.
Yeah. And there will be specific instances. I mean, I don't climb hard enough or strong enough that having a downturned shoe makes a significant difference in if I'm climbing overhang or doing toe hooks or something like that versus a moderate shoe. It just depends. And stronger climbers may differ when they're specifically arguing about different routes or specific terrain. One climber I've seen will wear one shoe on one foot and one on the other because of what the route asks of you. So there's tons of different things that you can get into and you can make your own personal choices on. But for a beginner, flat toes together, and as much as you can, you want that heel to not slip. I'd say early on in your career, say your first shoe, your first shoe, you want the toe box to be the thing you focus on the most. And heel would be the second thing. You don't want your heel slipping around, but for your first shoe, most of the time you're not doing heel hooks.
Half of what you're doing is bull riding across the wall and tearing up the rubber.
Yeah, so you want a cheaper shoe to start off with, rather than what are shoes now? Some of them are 200,
250.
Yeah,
they're getting expensive.
So aim for a cheaper shoe to start off with that's fairly comfortable. And as you tear through that shoe, by the time you're done with it, you're going to be, okay, this felt wrong because of this, or this felt right because of this, and you'll have a better idea of what you want in your next shoe.
Now you're making a decision for your shoe based off of experience, not just the things that everybody in your gym is telling you, not just the things that gym staff is going, well, I climb really hard in this shoe. That's cool for you. That doesn't help everybody, though.
I always liked it when guys would ask the team kids what shoe they like, and they all would invariably say whatever the shoe of the day is for them. And
Which
then the new
changes every couple months.
and then every new climber would try to get that shoe, and they're just like, man, this is just uncomfortable. Or they got one that was too big, tried to make it comfortable, and then within 3 days they're like, man, my foot slips around in the shoe and it just doesn't work anymore. So as you climb more, you're going to want a shoe that fits a little bit better, and by better I mean more comfortable for
the compression.
Yes,
that you'll
because you do want the shoe to fit tighter, and how tight again is up to you. So as a general rule, the tighter the shoe, the less your foot moves around in the shoe. So you would argue that if you can get down to the tightest shoe possible, that your foot's not going to move, so it's going to stay where you want it. That's the theory behind it, and it's
logical.
not a bad theory. Problem is, it freaking hurts at a certain point.
Yeah, you just can't wear shoes for more than 2 minutes at a time.
So you end up taking them on and off, on and off, on and off, and you end up getting hot spots or blisters because the shoe is just too tight for you. Or the opposite way, you get too big and it swims around and you get blisters in the shoe. So you sort of have to figure out what you like and what's comfortable for you. And that's what I would aim for as you progress through. Start off comfortable and then build yourself into something that's more comfortable as your foot gets used to being sort of jammed into the toe box, and how it's used to fitting appropriately and getting the heel right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have really high arches, and something that's an aggressive shoe, something that arches more, will fit and sort of suction through the bottom of your foot better.
I think it's really comfortable.
Yeah. So it depends. And one thing I've also found is that just because something says it's a men's shoe versus a women's shoe does not matter as long as it fits your foot.
Doesn't matter. I found the female solutions worked way better for me than the male solutions did.
Yeah, because you have a very narrow foot.
Yeah, I have a narrow foot with a high arch, which is how the female solution was made.
And it fit your foot really well. So I remember early on, actually, I think I helped you find that shoe. And when I did, I was like, don't worry about the fact that it's a female shoe. It just fits, and it worked great for you for a very long time. Yeah. That was, I think, your go-to shoe.
That was my go-to shoe until I found the Katana.
Yeah, and then you liked that one.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the laces, just to give you guys a warning, lacing shoes every time sucks. It sucks. But the shoe's worth it, in my opinion.
Okay, enough about your stupid shoe problem.
I love that shoe.
So we're gonna youth in general and kids shoes. So being a coach for a while, one of the things that I used to try to argue was, especially, I would really hammer on the first couple of pairs of shoes you get should be relatively cheap.
Yes.
Kids generally pick up technique a little faster than adults if they're actually focused, but I mean, how focused is your kid? Sometimes it depends on the day. Yeah. Sometimes it depends on what the old
time of day it is.
it's just how old they are too. It depends. So I tended to recommend cheaper shoes to start off with until they got their foot placement and their footwork in general under, let's call it, manageable control.
Yeah, because yet again, with a kid, and same as adults, they're gonna raging bull that wall and they're gonna tear up the rubber. Shoes are expensive, and kids are gonna blow through rubber faster than adults will.
And not only that, they're going to outgrow the shoe.
I was just getting there. Yeah.
I mean, you might have a 6-year-old who's not ready to go through a growth spurt or whatever, and they still outgrow a shoe in 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And then now you have to, if you bought an expensive shoe, now you have to go spend $250 every 3 or 4 months, which is, I think, ridiculous. So again, I would argue find something that's comfortable, cheaper if you can manage it.
Yeah.
But that is going to be dependent upon you and your budget and what you're doing. If they're a competition kid, maybe you want to spend the money, but at the same time, it's that is definitely a you choice. But what do you think about fit?
Personal. So I always looked at sizing the kids. When I talked to the parents, I'd say size them in socks. And I'm not a fan of climbing in socks. I like the sockless feel. But size them in socks. And then as it starts getting too tight, wearing the sock, you take it off. And now you have a shoe that you're still growing into because you had that extra fabric in there.
Yeah. So maybe you're running through a shoe instead of every 3 months. Now you're 6 months. And yes, that's still fast, but at the same time, for a kid that's growing, especially when they're in the
Yeah.
middle of a growth spurt, 6 months for a shoe to last
was
that
gonna
long
say.
when you have to resize basically every 3 months, that's
You
a
also
pretty
gotta
good.
figure if you're in the gym 2 or 3 days a week, 6 months for a shoe is about all the rubber you have.
Especially as much as they're climbing,
It's-
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how much I climb, 6 months is about all I can get out of the shoe.
Yeah. So,
But
so overall, unless there was something else that I missed, I think that's
I can't think of anything.
that's our general thoughts on shoes.
Yeah.
Again, I'm really mad at 510 for stopping the original Anasazi. This is the last Anasazi Pro that I have, so I am
Yeah.
very, very angry at all of you.
And he's gonna keep being angry while I continue to be happy with my katanas, as long as they're still getting made.
Well, hopefully that helps you sort of figure out how to size shoes. Don't always listen to the gym staff,
Yeah,
or if
and-
you go into an outdoor store when they're sizing you. A lot of times they've heard one thing that says, "Hey, as tight as you can stand it." Not the best choice.
Please don't go, but the greatest climber in the world uses this shoe, so it has to be the best, because that has very little to do with the shoes he's using and
How
much
it fits his
put
foot.
into it. Yeah, how much they put into being a great climber and how well the shoe fits him.
Yep. So be picky about your shoes, especially later on. First couple of pairs, just assume you're going to hate them.
Yeah,
after they're done.
Play around and have fun with them.
Other than that, enjoy get a pair of shoes that don't suck eventually.
Yeah. Also, sprays in your shoes so that they don't, kill everybody in the area. Solid advice.
Odor eaters of some type is probably just a good choice. All right. Enjoy shopping.
Enjoy. Bye.